Hello there, this is Alexander, and this is the most impressive and magnificent synthesizer I've used in a long time. This is the Expressive E Osmose, and today we're going to talk about all of its features and find out if it's worth your money. So let's go. So what is the Osmose? The Osmose is a fully digital polyphonic synthesizer that uses the highly detailed and versatile Haken Audio sound engine, and it has the most impressive and expressive keyboard you've ever seen in your life. In terms of build quality, this thing looks stunning. It's really sturdy and it's much heavier than you might think. It has a big color screen on the left and a few knobs and buttons to control parameters of the synthesizer. And of course, here you have the 49 key keybed. This elevated keybed that they design looks absolutely beautiful, but the real magic of the Osmose is how you interact with it. Expressive E claims that this is the new standard for musical expressivity, and I totally agree with that. This keyboard is something that you've never seen before, and you immediately understand that once you got it in your hands. It is an MPE keyboard, which stands for MIDI Polyphonic Expression, and that means that each key on the keyboard is completely independent. So any values like aftertouch, bending, anything that you can do with this keyboard is independent per note, and that makes it so special. By the way, if you want to listen to more Osmose sounds, I'll put another video playing presets from my favorites folder. I'm gonna play a lot of them, and I didn't want to make this a huge video, so I'll leave that link in the description or here up somewhere in the cards, so you can actually listen without me talking that much of how the Osmose sounds and see how versatile and fun it is to play with it. So let's start demoing and explaining all the gestures you can do with that keyboard. To explain that, it's better to hear it in action and see what this thing can do. So the thing you probably already seen about the Osmose is the ability to bend notes and create some kind of vibrato using the keyboard. Every note can be bent to create this vibrato effect. This might feel weird at first, and you'll definitely gonna make mistakes, but the good thing is that you can tweak the sensitivity of the keyboard, but also you can set the range of the vibrato. To do that, you have to go to the sensitivity menu, and here you can tweak the sensitivity but also set the range of the vibrato. Right now it's in one semitone. When you first start playing with the Osmose, I would suggest to lower this down. You can set it to 2/3 of a semitone, to a half semitone, or a quarter of a semitone, where you still get some kind of vibrato, but you're always staying in key and staying musical with it. Here it's with half of a semitone, 2/3, and a quarter. That alone is a revolutionary feature that has never been done before, but the guys at Expressive E didn't stay there, and they added a whole bunch of other gestures you can do with the keyboard to be more expressive and more natural. My favorite gesture you can do with the Osmose keyboard is that you can tap a note to create a sound with fast attack, or you can gently press a note to create a longer attack that sounds something like a pad. This is a tap, and this is the slow press. You can also shake a note and also strum a note. And some presets also allow you to have a note off sound. That means that when you quickly lift your finger, you also hear an additional sound. And lastly, there is Polyphonic Aftertouch. Aftertouch is not something brand new, but the way they implemented it on the Osmose feels so much better. When you press a key, at some point you're gonna reach like a soft cushion under the key, and after that you start introducing aftertouch. And that haptic feedback is really helpful when you're playing with the instrument. Another incredible feature is called pressure glide, and that means that you can glide through one note to the other, but not in the typical way that you find on other synthesizers. Here you can actually control the speed of the glide using your fingers, and you can also set the range of the notes that should glide. To do that, you have to go to the playing menu on any preset and choose pressure glide. And here you have the semitones that you want to set. I'll just set it to 1 octave. So now every note that I'm playing within the octave is gonna glide. If I'm gonna play a note that is more than 1 octave apart, it's not gonna do the glide thing. So a single preset can be transformed into multiple sounds and have a variety of timbres within the same preset. And that thing makes playing with the Osmose so exciting and actually really intuitive once you start to get a hold of it. My absolute favorite thing about the Osmose is the Arpeggiator that it has. To enable that for any preset, you have to go to the playing menu and just select Arpeggiator. The Arpeggiator itself has all the features that you would need on a typical arpeggiator that you can find on many synthesizers. But the thing that makes it so special for the Osmose is that all the gestures I mentioned are also available when you're playing arpeggios, which makes every sequence and every arpeggio so much more interesting. I mean, you cannot do that with a regular synthesizer. So everything like aftertouch, velocity is applied on the arpeggio, which makes this different timbres within the same arp. Osmose comes with more than 500 presets, and you also get an additional 1,500 user slots where you can store your own presets or modified versions of the existing ones. In those 500 presets, you'll find a plethora of different sounds, all tailor-made to interact with the gestures that you can perform on the Osmose. You can find classic synth sounds, world instruments, percussion, sound effects, physical modeling sounds. You can pretty much do any sound you can imagine for a synthesizer. Using the screen, you can tweak some macros for each preset that you will find on the Synth tab in your menu. It also has an effect slot where you can choose from some of the effects that Expressive E has added in the Osmose. You have a tilt EQ that you can mix in, and also a compressor in the end. The macros can be useful to tweak some sounds, but you cannot really do sound design with the Osmose. So you're mostly stuck with presets, and I'm sure that's the reason why Expressive E decided to create so many of them that have exceptional quality. To create your own presets, you have to use the Gain Matrix plugin by Hacken Audio, which is really difficult to use, hard to learn, but more on that later. To navigate through the presets, you can use the menu tree that has a lot of categories, and since version 2.0, you can now favorite your favorite presets, and that's really useful because you have like more than 500 of them and it's kind of hard to navigate. And they also added another feature called playlists, where you can group some of your presets to a specific playlist that you can recall afterwards. That is really helpful, and I'm using it today to do this demo because you can group some of your presets and also use it for live purposes for a specific project. I mostly use the Osmose as a standalone synthesizer, but it's also one of the best, if not the best, MIDI controller you can buy right now. Since version 2.0, all of these keyboards, gestures, and the arpeggiator are also available for controlling other MIDI instruments or plugins. The only two things that they were missing was pressure glide and the arpeggiator, and they listened to the audience and added also those two features. So now everything you can do for the presets, you can also do that for other MIDI instruments and plugins that are of course MPE compatible. So now we're gonna play some sound from Expressive E's plugin called Noisy 2 that is of course MPE compatible, so you can listen how you can interact with the plugin with the Osmose's keyboard. And lastly, I'm gonna use it to control another synthesizer that is not MPE, but you can use some of the gestures, like for example the Arturia MiniFreak that I'm gonna use for this demo. So what are the pros and cons of the Osmose? In the pro side, classical instruments are mostly known for expression and not really for their sound. For example, a violin or a piano kind of always sound the same, but it's in the player's ability to be expressive through them. And when it comes to synthesizers, we tend to rely more on the sound itself and the timbre of the sound, and not really on expressiveness. And this instrument blends those two worlds in the most beautiful and actually groundbreaking way. You'll be blown away how far you can take a single synthesizer patch using the Osmose as a keyboard. Also, the build quality is excellent, and this thing just looks beautiful, which is not that important, but it takes an extra point. And when it comes to sounds, the quality of the presets is mind-blowing. There's so many good sounds in those presets that you probably won't bother creating your own. And also, while the Osmose is a fully digital synthesizer, it has one characteristic that vintage analog synths have: the ability to bend notes, slightly bend notes while you play, and you're gonna do that a lot, trust me. Reminds me of the not really stable and not good at tracking pitch oscillators on vintage analog synths. We try to replicate that nowadays because all synths can do pitch tracking perfectly, but this thing and you playing it will create that effect, and it sounds really good and really organic. And lastly, one really important thing is that this thing is been updated and been taken care of by Expressive E. That is really important when you get an instrument, to know that you will be taken care of in the future, and I think that they're gonna keep updating this thing for a long time to come, and they actually listen to their audience and to the people having an Osmose and adding features that we request. So what about the cons? When I start doing a demo or review, I go through comments on Reddit, on forums, and on YouTube, and I'm trying to understand what people think and what people don't like about something, so I can test that myself. And one thing that a few people mention is the size of the keyboard itself. They said that 49 keys for these kind of sounds is kind of limiting, and that they would prefer having a 61 version of it, or a 56, or even an 88 version of the Osmose. My preferred keyboard size is 61 keys, but to be honest, if I didn't read that comment, I would never think of it while playing the Osmose. I would never think I need an extra octave. So in my case, it's not really an issue, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. The thing I actually didn't like about the Osmose is the Eigen Matrix software that comes with it. I've watched a lot of videos and everyone was saying, yeah, it's hard to use, it's really complicated. And I was thinking, yeah, I've used like a million synthesizers and plugins, so I'll be fine. I'll make it work. Well, when I first used it, I immediately got really humbled by it. It's so hard to use. The intuitiveness of the user interface is close to zero. And just to make a simple patch, you're gonna spend hours tweaking parameters. And I think that for the average user, it is completely unusable, and don't even bother downloading it if you're not planning to spend a lot of time and effort to learn it. But there's a silver lining to this. Expressive E already announced that they're working on a new version of the Eigen Matrix, or something that is gonna work for the Osmose and give you the ability to create your own presets and modify the existing ones. So we'll just have to wait and see when it comes out. I'm really excited about it, and I think that when this comes out, this is gonna be like a complete instrument. So the Expressive E Osmose is a one-of-a-kind type of synthesizer, and it's so beautifully designed and implemented that I think it's gonna be a long time since we see something similar to it. It creates such an intimate connection to the player that I've never experienced before. It might feel intimidating at first, but trust me, you don't need to be a pro keyboard player to use the Osmose. it's an instrument that you want to use the actual instrument and not sequence it or play it with another MIDI keyboard. But I'm not a pro keyboard player, and I'm doing just fine with it, and I'm having so much fun with it, so don't be intimidated by it. I think that could be really useful to be added, and I think it's kind of easy to be added, is the ability to set your scales for people that make a lot of mistakes while playing, like myself. So you can set your scale, and that can also be used for the vibrato thing, so you can have like 5 semitones of the range of the vibrato, but now those 5 semitones are going to be within the scale, and that can be really fun to play with. And to be honest, I'm really glad that they didn't actually make it a synthesizer with the classic synth sounds. I prefer that they use the Haken Audio sound engine that can create all those different types of sounds. It fits perfectly with the gestures and the synth itself, so I'm really glad that they went that way, and you have a variety of sounds of different flavors in the end. So if you're doing scores or if you're doing cinematic ambient music, I think that this is a must-have. I mean, you just go out and buy it because it does that incredibly well. But don't think that this is the only thing that this instrument can do. It can do so much stuff, and I cannot really think of anyone that wouldn't have fun having an Osmose in their studio. So is it worth it? To be fair, I don't think I can compare the Osmose to anything else out in the market. It is an incredible MP MIDI controller, just like a Seaboard for example, but it's also a synth. And you can find a lot of synths that can do organic, physical modeling or wavetables, but they don't have this key bed. So it's one of a kind, it's a different experience, an instrument that I don't think you can compare to anything else there is out right now. It is not a cheap instrument, but in today's market and with the current synth prices, I think that the Osmose is very reasonably priced for what you're getting, and I think it's definitely worth the investment. So thank you so much for watching. You can ask me anything you want in the comments, I'm gonna answer all of them. You can leave a like and subscribe if you like this video, and I really hope to see you on the next one. Love ya.